woman prayed in despair without uttering a sound. The high priest saw her and concluded she was drunk. This misunderstanding would forever change the destiny of Israel. On the stone steps of the tabernacle in Shiloh, the high priest observed a woman and concluded she was drunk. Why was the prayer that changed Israel's destiny mistaken for drunkenness? Let's investigate the original Hebrew text to understand what truly happened in that dusty courtyard. The account preserved in the ancient scrolls describes a scene that defied all religious conventions of the Iron Age. The Ark of the Covenant rested in Shiloh, the spiritual heart of the 12 tribes before Jerusalem even existed. There, the elderly high priest Eli sat in his chair. He positioned himself by the doorpost of the sanctuary's main entrance. His attention was captured by a solitary figure in the courtyard. A woman wept bitterly, her face turned toward the sacred structure. But there was a detail profoundly disturbing for the culture of that era. In the ancient Near East, prayer was a vocal act, a public declaration that all could hear and witness. Silent prayer, as we know it today, was practically non-existent in the documented records of that period. And yet, this woman's lips moved at a constant rhythm, but her voice was unheard. To the trained eyes of Israel's religious leader, that didn't look like devotion. It looked like the uncontrolled behavior of someone who had consumed too much wine during the sacrificial feasts. The biblical text captures the exact tension of this historical misunderstanding. The priest's rebuke was ready to be uttered. But the real mystery wasn't in Eli's hasty accusation. The mystery lay in the hidden pain behind the lips that moved without uttering a sound. The lips that moved without uttering a sound belonged to Hannah, a woman caught in a web of family anguish. To understand the weight of that moment, we need to step back to the hills of Ephraim. Hannah was married to Elkanah, a man of means who faithfully followed the traditions of his people. But the structure of his household carried a common fracture in the ancient world: polygamy. Elkanah had a second wife named Peninnah, and the Hebrew records are relentless in describing the devastating dynamic between the two women. Peninnah had sons and daughters. Hannah was barren. In the agricultural culture of 3,000 years ago, fertility wasn't just a matter of maternal desire. It was economic survival, a guarantee of care in old age, and the primary measure of social status. A childless woman carried a severe stigma in the community, often interpreted by the community as divine disfavor. The original text uses a specific term to describe Peninnah's attitude. She is called a rival, and the Hebrew indicates that she provoked Hannah continually to irritate her. This psychological torture reached its peak once a year. The family traveled annually from the mountainous city of Ramathaim Zophim to the sanctuary in Shiloh. The goal was to offer sacrifices and participate in the sacred feasts. During the communion feast, the sacrificial meat was divided. Elkanah gave portions to Peninnah and all her children, but to Hannah, the text says he gave a double portion, or a portion of honor depending on the translation. He tried to compensate for her barrenness with public displays of affection and provision. But the husband's affection didn't erase the humiliation of the rival's provocations at the banquet table. Hannah's pain became so profound that she simply stopped eating. Tears replaced the festive food. The sorrow reached an unbearable limit, forcing her to rise from the table and walk away alone. She left behind the noise of the banquet and the voices of Peninnah's children. Her steps led her directly to the dusty path that led to the pillars of the sacred tent. But the pillars of the sacred tent of Shiloh didn't enclose a refuge of peace. They supported a deeply corrupted system. The era of the judges was in its final days. The biblical book preceding this story ends with a somber and revealing sentence. In those days there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. The tabernacle, which should have been the nation's moral beacon, had become a center of extortion. The sons of the high priest Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas are described in the Hebrew text as unworthy men, men who did not know the Lord. They stole the meat from the worshippers even before the fat was burned on the bronze altar. They threatened pilgrims with physical violence if they weren't appeased. Even more gravely, records indicate they lay with the women who served at the tent's entrance. The spiritual atmosphere of Shiloh was contaminated by greed and abuse of power. Eli, aged and with failing sight, knew of his son's crimes, but he failed to stop them with the necessary firmness his office demanded. It was precisely in this scenario of institutional decay that Hannah knelt to pray. What was in the silent words of this woman that so disturbed the order of the sanctuary? She didn't just ask for temporary relief from her personal pain. The first book of Samuel, chapter 1, verse 11, records that she made a solemn vow. If the God of hosts would look upon her affliction and give her a son, she would return him. She would consecrate him to the service of the sanctuary for all the days of his life. And she added a crucial physical detail. No razor would ever touch the child's head. It was the Nazirite vow, an extreme, lifelong dedication that demanded absolute purity. In a place where the priests themselves had abandoned holiness, a broken mother promised the impossible. She would give her only son to restore the spiritual order of Israel. The tension between the corruption of the environment and the purity of the vow was recorded in the Hebrew scroll. The Hebrew scroll reveals that the high priest's reaction to this devotion was immediate and tragically mistaken. Seated in his chair, Eli observed Hannah's mouth moving without uttering a sound. His conclusion, recorded in verse 14, was harsh and accusatory. "How long will you be drunk? Put away your wine." The word Eli hurled at her was shikora, a term associated with a complete loss of senses. To understand Eli's blindness, we need to look at the religious practices of that time. In the Canaanite cults that often influenced Israel's borders, uncontrolled ecstasy was common. Fertility rituals in pagan temples involved drunkenness and chaotic behaviors. Eli, accustomed to dealing with the moral degradation of his own sons, presumed the worst. He looked at the greatest demonstration of faith of his generation and saw only another profane transgression. But Hannah's response would change the history of biblical spirituality forever. She did not recoil before the high priest's authority. With deep respect, but with unwavering firmness, she declared her innocence. "No, my lord, I am a woman deeply troubled in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord." The Hebrew expression she uses, pouring out the soul, became a landmark in Jewish literature. Centuries later, the Babylonian Talmud would use Hannah's exact posture to teach the rules of genuine prayer. The rabbinic sages pointed out that she was the first person in Scripture to pray silently. She innovated communication with the divine, bringing the cry directly to the heart. Until then, recorded prayers were proclamations by leaders, songs of victory, or public outcries. Hannah brought prayer into the silence of the soul, a place where no corrupt priest could interfere. The strength of her words broke Eli's cynicism. The high priest recoiled, realizing his grotesque error, and declared a blessing of peace upon the woman. God would grant the petition she had made in the courtyard. Hannah's face changed. She returned home, ate, and sorrow no longer marked her features. the silent miracle had already begun to form, long before she began to weave the linen tunic. The linen tunic that Hannah would bring annually for her son marked the definitive answer to that day of tears. The prayer that changed Israel was mistaken for drunkenness because the religious system was blind. Accustomed to profane corruption in its own courtyards, the priesthood had lost the ability to recognize true spiritual agony. But Hannah's silence was louder than the noise of all the sacrifices of Shiloh. The son she bore was named Samuel, which means asked of the Lord. Faithful to her vow, as soon as the boy was weaned, she brought him back to the sanctuary. She entrusted him to Eli's care, fulfilling the promise made amid her tears. The boy grew up in that difficult environment, wearing a small linen ephod woven by her mother. He became the unwavering prophet who would guide the nation through its greatest transition. It was Samuel who anointed the first kings of Israel, King Saul, and later the young shepherd David. The Israelite monarchy, the lineage that would define biblical history, was not born of military strategy. It was born from the silent prayer of a barren mother, a woman who endured family humiliation and hasty religious judgment without ever raising her voice. In our next episode, we will investigate Eve and Mary, the first mother to lose a son and the last to see the son return. We will discover the invisible thread that connects the Garden of Eden to the dust of Golgotha. The echo of that silent prayer would continue to shape kings and prophets long after the stones of Shiloh became mere dust in the wind.